View from a balcony, pulling the blue lawn chairs next to the ice chest. Stuffed 2 grams in the blunt that we just blew. Now I'm getting blown by a bitch who I don't know her name. Gold chain hanging, got a few in the room, but I don't wear them out. Only wear them in the house, cause I shine so bright that I wanna blind you.
The elderly man then heard some rustles and looked to his side to see a girl had met up with the elder that day. When she saw came to see, "Where are the kids?" she asked, looking at him. "They're on their way back to town," the male said, looking at her. It wasn't until just now that she noticed the bodies on the ground. "What happened here?" she asked, looking at him. The elderly man said and sighed and offered her to hand up, knowing exactly what happened. "I explained when we got to Shabaku office. He gonna need to hear this too," he said as he helped her when she got up and dusted herself off and then began to move through the trees. As they did pass over to Naruto and Fu. When they too saw birds pass over them, they both got a little nervous. "Let's speed it up a little bit," Fu suggested, looking at Naruto. Man, she wanted him to go over to her. However, Naruto knew that trying to go over there would be proved to be pointless, so he just moved to the side and pointed at the ropes. When Fu saw this, she grew a little desperate. However, she then heard what sounds like footsteps in the distance. She then smiled and disappeared, much to Naruto's distress. She then followed the sound she had heard and was happy when she saw a familiar face with long blonde hair that came down to the back of her knees, wearing a katana headband. She then ran up to them and smiled. "Thank you, thank goodness you are here." Need to. Fu didn't get to finish her sentence as the blonde interrupted her. "Fu, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be this far away from the village. It's dangerous," she said, looking at her. However, she quickly remembered why she was out here in this place. "Never mind that. We need to find someone who came to the village. His name is Naruto," he said. The blonde hair and the blue eyes so kept looking out for him. "He was kidnapped from unknown reason," the tall blonde hair said, looking at her. "That what I wanted to tell you. I know where Naruto is. I followed the people that took him away from here," the green hair female said, looking up at the girl that was currently in front of her. "Really? Then show me where they are. That way I can gather teams and we can beat them up," the female said, looking down at the child in front of her. When she did, Fu nodded and walked over to the bush she had just left. However, when she got close to the bush she had been in, she got caught quiet and pointed to it. "They're just behind that bush," she said, looking at her. The tall blonde then nodded and walked past the bush, making herself known to her two enemies. When the two finally took notice of her, they rose up of the ground and looked at her. "Who are you, and do you want?" the male of the two asked, looking at her. "I'm a shinobi of Takara, of the Hidden Rain, and I have some to reclaim the citizen that you have stolen," she said, looking at the two members in front of her. When the two heard this, they got closer together and completely hid Naruto from view. "I'm afraid we can not do that, miss. We are very sorry that you waste your trip here. So if you don't mind, please leave," the female said, looking at her. "Well, I'm afraid that I cannot do that. So how about you just hand him over," the girl said, silent as she felt a sharp pain in her back, on her neck. As soon as she felt this pain, she knew what it meant. She could do nothing about it. She just sighed and she left her body slowly fall down to the ground and watched as her vision fade to black. The third member that had been hiding until then stepped forward and looked at the two in front of him. I think we should leave in one of them known of our location. It's a matter of time before the other figure out our location as well. The male said, looking at them. The two then nodded, and the male walked over to Naruto. Full brain went into the overdrive, thinking more than it ever had before. She wasn't sure what to do in this situation. She was about to lose her first real friend, the first person besides Shibaku that treat her like human being and not some freak, the only person that asked if she wanted to be a friend, the first person who wanted to be in her life. She wasn't sure what to do in this last, so she did the first thing that came to her mind. She stepped out of the bush she had been hiding and yelled, "Wait!" She, of course, had not thought this through all the way, so when they three of them turned around to see her, was froze in fear. Seemed as if we had found another one, the male said, who had just recently shown up, said behind forward. Touch. I don't think that's a good idea, the girl said in front of Fu. She is the Chinchuriki of the Hidden Rain. We must kill her. Would almost be as if we are asking for war, and we cannot afford a war with the organization trying to stay hidden with our village, the female said, looking at the male that was in front of her. When he heard this, he turned around to her. Really, now? Well, I guess you to do make a good point. We can't afford a war at this moment, then again. We cannot afford this. Just leave her be. That she knows we have Naruto, the male said, looking at her. He was then quiet for a moment before he looked over at the female once again. That contains Naruto needs to be returned in again. He asked, looking at her. He just needs to be returned alive. Why do you ask, Techi? The female said, looking at him. Well, if she came all the way out here just to find him, then he's obviously important to her, right? Inform the girl. He was treated before, then roughing him up should be no problem. Not to mention, I'm sure that she will get the picture to not follow us, he said, looking at her. When he said this, she nodded and got behind Fu before she pinned her down to the ground and forced her to head to the position where she was looking straight into her face. The leader of the three, which she had came to know as Tachi, then brought Naruto in front of her and looked at her. Listen, if you don't stop following us, then bad things are happening to him. Like this, the male said, and as he drew a katana from his holster and brought it into Naruto's throat. This is the second time in one day I have had to use a kunai to my throat. That gave Naruto thought as he felt the blade sinking into his throat slightly. Now, do you understand you need to stop following us? He asked, looking at her. Yes, I understand. I'll stop following you, Fu said, looking at the male that was currently holding the blade to Naruto's throat. I don't think you do, the male said as he brought the blade down to Naruto's side. He said slowly brought the blade into his side. The suddenly pain caused Naruto to swing and even let out a slight screech at the new source of pain to enter his body. Please stop, Fu said, looking at the male in front of her. Naruto's eyes started to slowly open in pain. Subside, however, this was short lived as the male began to twist the kunai into the wound, causing Naruto to scream out slightly. Fu once again sounded herself at loss of what it was she was supposed to do for whatever reason, even though she had never been in this situation before. She felt angry at what they're doing. Do you understand now? If you continue to follow us, this pain will only grow. I know for a fact that neither one of us want to do this. Just turn around and go back to the village, Tachi said, looking at Fu. He then looked the blade out of his wound and slammed into his knee. Fu felt her body suddenly heat up in anger, and she saw him to do the same thing inside of her. Just snapped. I said stop it, Fu said, as she suddenly felt a large, stronger than she had been felt before. She suddenly turned around to where she was facing the female that was holding her. She then jumped up and moved her body to where her feet were at her cupped her chest. She then kicked her opponent with all the force she had, which sent both of her and her opponents back. This caused the girl to let out of a pain of scream. When she did this, she let out the scream much louder than intended, and this caused the surrounding ninjas to hear. When a Katane male that Naruto had met in the morning heard a scream in waste no time to rush over to where the scream had came from. Who could all that be? I know we had visitors earlier today, but this is ridiculous. I hope that if it is not the people that took Naruto, that Naruto is alright, the male thought as he dashed through the trees. However, when he got there, he came across unexpected situation. There was three confirmed enemies, however. Each one of them was on the ground and covered with blood. He saw Fu looking rather closely at the wounded on Naruto's side. Naruto is alright. It doesn't hurt. Does it? Fu asked as she reached out for the wound that was on his side. Yeah, it's fine, Fu. It doesn't hurt anymore, Naruto said, looking at her. Well then, how about one of your legs? Is it alright? Are you able to stand up? Fu asked as she looked at him. It hurts a little bit. I'm sure the pain will go away, Naruto said as he looked at the female in front of him. When he said this, Fu let out a sigh and looking at him with a smile. That's good. Well, let's go home, Naruto, Fu said as she got up. When she did, she offered Naruto a hand up and he took it with a smile. What happened here? The male said as she looked at the two in front of him. You should be in the village, Fu. What awesome kick you have all of their butts, and they were all freaked out, saying something about seal or something like that. But it was just awesome, man. You really should have been in the fires. Naruto began as he let out a rant would have continued in a half of hours. Man, hadn't put a stop to it. All right. That's enough. I get the idea. He then took a rather large drink of bottle of sake that he had with him and looked at the two in front of him. Well, you two, I suppose, to make sure Naruto was safe and the others and a few minor injuries. He looked to be just fine, so let head back to the village, the man said, watching the two of them walking by. The two children then nodded and walked away. The elder. I hope you like and subscribe.